So maybe we'll try it again. I just recorded, but it's and the same way I always do, but it seemed far away. And then I listen to it and it's like, wait a minute, something doesn't sound right. And then I go and I record a test and it sounds perfect. And then so now I'm back again. And the peculiar thing about this, let me see if I can do. No, you can't listen to it midway and then pick up where you left off. Not with the equipment that I have. It gets a little tricky in my world. So let's see if I can do this again. So, I wonder, maybe I should just upload what I already had because I had a flow. And doing it over again, you never capture it the way. So now I'm rambling because I'm stumped. In real time, I'm stumped. So the power of story, the power of mythology, the power of having it or the debilitation of not having it. And without comparing the two, because it's like comparing apples to concrete, to have and have been raised in and grown up with and cultivated around stories and mythology, the power of the bedtime story, the power of the campfire story, the power of the family room with the crackling fireplace and one's family story, the power of being around one's family and hearing about family members that was generations before you got here, to be in the presence of someone who knew your granddad, your great granddad, your mom, your mom's mom, your mom's mom, and not necessarily them per se knowing them, but the journals and the notebooks and the privilege of having pieces written about your work or your passions or your instances, and then have your grandchildren, your children, your children's children, and their children read about it, and you're long gone. The power of having one's legacy in print or whatever medium it is that preserves it precisely so that when your lineage comes, they have something to esteem by that is not just for entertainment purposes only. The power of the bedtime story, the power of having myth interwoven, mythology interwoven into your junior high, and college days. If you're even able to make it through your junior high school, and college days. It really is a phenomenology that we don't speak about much in my world. So as I say often, I have had the privilege of, whether I'm in the salon or the barbershop, as well as my parallel career in nonprofit member services and marketing. That 13-year stretch, as well as my being a cosmetologist for over 20 years, those that having a career, and I stumble with this because the meaning of a dual career is something different from what I had. And I want to call it paralleling parallel careers, because the way my world was set up back then, I had a full-time job in nonprofit member services, and then on Thursday, Friday, and all day on Saturday, I was in the salon. Sometimes on Wednesdays, but not so much, unless it was some kind of emergency or scheduling conflict. But most definitely, Thursday, Friday, all day on Saturday, I was in the salon. So those two careers introduced me to some of the most intriguing people. And without me even noticing, I began to see patterns and understand in a world that didn't exist for me. In a world with a home that has a crackling fireplace and a multi-generational family environment where the family room, there are always some type of exciting storyline going down. or being challenged to write or compose something or create off of the fly, or the impromptu understandings of character position, and just the overwhelm of lessons that are preserved in stories, and to understand that one's great granddad led the charge that made this happen and made that happen. And that's not even to say that people of my kind don't have these stories, but it is to tussle and tuggle with those that have been positioned to chaperone and cultivate and catalog those stories. This morning, I have been tapping into the story of Orpheus. And it's such a bittersweet story. But I've also been running that parallel to the versions of stories. See, mythology is a wonder because it has several adaptations. Like, there's a spectrum of versions of how this particular story is told, who it's told by, why it's told. This is the reason why you can get several versions. Cinderella, Aladdin, Sleeping Beauty, the television series Once Upon a Time, I indulged in so much. People love to call me an escapist, and I allow them to have their way now, because this raw ass, mundane ass reality is a hoot. And to expect anyone to just remain eyeballs deep in this shit without no reprieve, without no release, without no complementary storyline to accommodate the fuckery, you've got to be fucking kidding me. But my childhood did not exist with an abundance of stories. Tragedy hit me early, so I've always been somewhere with a book in my hand just to help me understand certain things. So during that 13-year stretch, while I was in membership and marketing services, or member services and marketing, I mainly was in the call center for the majority of that timeline. And so being on these calls and speaking to an array of different folks, there's one thing to keep in mind. Professional associations is such a mixing bowl. People from all walks of life will call in with one thing in mind. They need to understand their membership. But once that's over, I did come across some of the most wondrous professors that really are into mythology and history, and I'm speaking to them outside of their classroom, so they have more of the aura of being just a human person. And so some of the mechanics are muted, and also because they're in gratitude of being able to fix or repair whatever it is that was ailing them about their membership. And so sometimes it made me feel like, okay, allow me to return the favor to just chit chat with you for a little while. One conversational piece that constantly came up was my birth name, Thea. And so I had this professor, as a professor of mythology, somewhere in that realm. I can't tell you what the exact, I knew he was a professor. I knew he was of college level, university level. And he broke it down to me, the meaning of my name and the titan it was associated with, and what the weight of her designation meant. And to carry on that namesake and what it was all about, honestly, morphed my curiosities into realms of the unknown. And even to this day, from that conversation, I have positioned certain interests. It definitely put a couple of notches in my esteem. It cultivated and matured me on so many levels. I am showing up today to encourage those that are interested in or have situated or styled their lives around stories, the power of stories, the power of the bedtime story, the power of the campfire stories, those that illuminate and come to life when it is time to depict and deposit lessons that have been well preserved in stories that reach back to antiquity. There are many names for a storyteller. I'm going to stick to my specified genre, my genre of preference, and it's the Toastmaster. I've been learning and being engaged with Toastmasters, even in the realm of the official club of Toastmasters, but not necessarily. I'm more in tune to the neighborhood Toastmasters. I'm intrigued with the stories that people decide to tell. Even in regular conversation, I'm really intrigued with what made you tell that story. You know, how we are drawn together and patched together by stories, and how context and language will always matter, and how the harmony of the good, the bad, the ugly, the win, lose, or draw is all twined into quilt our lives, to benchmark our existence, to blend and harmonize and encourage and teach and reprimand and switch and counteract. So, if you are someone who is intrigued by telling, preserving, cultivating, curating, cataloging, if you are someone who is consumed by, who's been held by, who's been esteemed by, who has been healed by, encouraged by, incubated, enrichment by stories that have been told to you about known and unknown gods, known and unknown ancestors, known and unknown heroes and sheroes, this is the timeline for you to dig a little deeper. Get deep with this thing. I know right now, mainstream is encouraging everyone to go towards the light. Go towards the light, Caroline. I get it. But there is something deeply rich in the soil, and you will need your nocturnal sensibilities for this. You will need to not be scared, not to be afraid of the dark, not to be scared of your shadow. There are supremely rich lessons and teachings inside of stories that can have and hold you until death do you part. And death is a spectrum. If you know anything about Pluto and transformations, anytime you transform into something else, you die to the old something else. Within one person's lifetime, a spectrum of variations of will occur. I am nowhere near the same person I was even just, man, like 24 months ago, let alone 24 years ago. And so the spectrum of your lifestyle, as it ebb and flows, and it goes and it goes, it's going to be up and down and around and around. in my opinion, something sort of like the infinity sign. And so if you are someone that uses your voice to portray and predict, or portray and deposit, showcase, even if you're one that's a safe keeper of stories, or you stand in the bridge to make sure others can have access to this story, I encourage you to share, and share freely. Give it away for free. Be the compliment with an E and the compliment with an I. Be the compliment. Be the compliment. Be the compliment. And until next time, I truly do wish you well.